Marriage is often portrayed as the perfect partnership, a space where two individuals share their lives, dreams, and responsibilities. However, for many men, the reality of marriage is a far cry from the fairy tale they were promised. From the moment they say "I do," they are thrust into a role that often demands more than they can give. They are expected to be the financial provider, the emotional rock, and the protector. What many men fail to realize is that this seemingly equal partnership can quickly become a situation where their needs are ignored, their emotions are suppressed, and the entire weight of the relationship rests on their shoulders. Today, we're going to expose the hidden truths about how marriage exploits men and why so many men end up paying the price. The illusion of equality from the day we are born. Society begins to shape us into specific roles we must play to fit in, to be accepted, and to be considered valuable. One of the most significant roles men are conditioned to adopt is that of the provider, the protector, and the leader in a relationship. This role becomes particularly ingrained in marriage. We are taught from a young age that marriage is the ultimate bond of equality. But is that truly the reality for men? The idea of equality in marriage often exists more as an ideal than as a reality. We are told that marriage is about two people coming together to equally share their lives. The narrative that men and women are equal partners in love, work, and emotional investment sounds beautiful in theory, but what happens when you look behind the curtain of this supposedly balanced relationship? The truth is, many men find themselves under constant pressure to meet a set of expectations that go far beyond what they signed up for. They are expected to be emotionally available, to support their spouse's dreams, to provide financially, and to be the one who resolves conflicts. At the same time, society still expects men to suppress their own emotions, to never show weakness, and to remain the unshakable rock of the relationship. This creates an imbalance in the marriage that is often hard to spot but deeply affects a man's well-being. Consider how society often frames relationships. Men are led to believe that marriage will bring them companionship, stability, and a deep emotional bond. But what happens when reality falls short of these expectations? What happens when a man gives everything he has, his time, energy, and resources, only to discover that his own needs and desires are being overlooked or undervalued? The very concept of equality becomes a trap, a promise that sounds good but is rarely fulfilled. This imbalance is especially clear when we look at the responsibilities men bear in a marriage. They are expected to provide, protect, and act as the emotional pillar, yet, when a problem arises, the entire weight often falls solely on their shoulders. While women are praised for their nurturing qualities, men are expected to hold everything together, often without being given the opportunity to express their own emotions or needs. In many cases, men are not encouraged to ask for help or even admit when they feel overwhelmed. The financial burden. When most people think of marriage, they imagine shared responsibilities to people pooling their resources, supporting each other, and building a life together. But for many men, the reality of marriage comes with a huge financial burden that often lands squarely on their shoulders. The idea of marriage as an equal partnership can feel like a facade. When it becomes clear that men are frequently the ones expected to carry the heaviest financial load. From the moment a man gets married, he is conditioned to believe that he is the primary provider. Society, family, and even his spouse place this expectation on him, whether it's paying for the wedding, covering household expenses, or funding the family's future. Men are expected to bring in the majority of the income and ensure the financial foundation of the marriage remains stable. On the surface, this might seem like a noble expectation. After all, providing for a family is a responsibility. But what often goes unsaid is how this pressure can slowly drain a man's energy, time, and emotional health. Men are told that a good husband financially supports his wife, but no one ever seems to mention the toll this takes on their mental health, personal goals, and overall happiness. That this financial burden isn't just about day-to-day expenses. It extends to long-term expectations. From paying off debts to funding their children's education, men are expected to plan for the future in a way that often leaves them feeling trapped. They are expected to sacrifice their own desires, whether career ambitions, hobbies, or even personal freedom, to ensure the family's financial security. In some relationships, this burden becomes even more pronounced. The wife may take on a more passive role financially, relying on her husband to make the big financial decisions and provide most of the income. This dynamic can feel suffocating for men, as they find themselves working longer and harder hours to maintain the lifestyle their wife and children have become accustomed to. The irony is that while women are encouraged to focus on emotional connection, self-care, and nurturing the family, men are often expected to give up their own needs to provide for the family financially. And what happens when the marriage falls apart? This is when the financial burden on men becomes even more obvious. Divorce disproportionately affects men financially, leaving many scrambling to rebuild their lives. Men who were once the primary providers may find a huge portion of their income going toward child support, alimony, and asset division. This is in addition to the emotional pain of losing their family and home. In many cases, a man will have spent years building his wealth only to have it stripped away in a divorce settlement. He is left paying for the life he once shared with his wife, even though the relationship is over. This financial fallout often forces men to sacrifice their own financial security and future, leaving them struggling to maintain their standard of living while still providing for their children. An ex-wife. It's not just the aftermath of divorce that presents financial challenges. It's the entire duration of the marriage. Men are often expected to work harder and longer hours to meet the growing financial demands of the family, with little room to focus on their own well-being or personal goals. The pressures of being the sole financial provider can lead to burnout, stress, and resentment. Yet men are rarely given the space to express these struggles without being criticized or seen as weak. This imbalance is further made worse by the fact that in many marriages, women are not expected to contribute financially in the same way. While there is nothing wrong with one partner taking on a more active role in the household, the problem arises when men are expected to bear the majority of the financial responsibility without any acknowledgement of the toll it takes on them. The narrative that men should always provide while women focus on nurturing the family creates an unspoken inequality that can feel suffocating for men. The emotional toll. Marriage is often seen as a partnership, a union of two people who share their lives, dreams, and futures. But what is rarely discussed is the emotional toll that marriage takes on men. Men are frequently expected to be the strong ones, the ones who provide, protect, and hold everything together. But who is there to support them? Who helps them carry the emotional weight when they feel overwhelmed or empty? In many marriages, men are conditioned to suppress their emotions. Society teaches men from a young age that vulnerability is a weakness, and that showing emotion is something to be ashamed of. As a result, when they enter a marriage, they often feel the need to be the steady rock, the one who never wavers or shows fear or sadness. This societal expectation is one of the most dangerous aspects of marriage for men, as it leads to emotional repression, isolation, and ultimately, burnout. While women are often encouraged to express their feelings and seek emotional support, men are expected to keep their emotions in check. This can lead to an unhealthy dynamic where the man feels he must carry the entire emotional burden of the relationship while ignoring his own needs. Men are expected to be emotionally available for their wives, to listen to their problems, to offer solutions, and to provide comfort. Yet, when the man himself is struggling, his needs are often overlooked or dismissed. The emotional burden men carry in marriage can be incredibly heavy. They are expected to provide emotional stability but are rarely given the space to express their own feelings. The result is a constant internal struggle. On the outside, they are the strong, dependable partner, but inside, they may feel emotionally drained, unappreciated, and alone. Their own emotional needs are often put on the back burner as they focus on the needs of their spouse and family. This emotional exhaustion can lead to feelings of resentment. Men start to resent the expectations placed on them, the pressure to be perfect, to never fail, and to always have the answers. They begin to feel as though they are giving everything to the marriage but receiving little in return. When men give their time, energy, and emotional support to their wives without receiving the same level of support, they start to question the fairness of the relationship. The emotional toll can also appear in physical ways. Chronic stress, anxiety, and depression are all common consequences of carrying the emotional weight of a marriage alone. Men who feel they can't express their emotions are at a higher risk for mental health issues because they bottle up their feelings, which can lead to emotional breakdowns later on. The constant pressure to maintain a facade of strength is exhausting and can cause deep emotional wounds that are hard to heal. Another part of the emotional toll on men is the fear of failure. Men are often expected to be the ones who solve problems, provide solutions, and take care of their families. When things go wrong in the marriage, whether it's a financial issue, a disagreement, or an emotional conflict, men often blame themselves. They feel responsible for fixing everything and keeping the family intact. This sense of responsibility can be overwhelming, especially when the man feels that no one is there to help him carry the load. Even when men try to express their struggles or ask for help, they are often met with resistance. Society teaches men that asking for help is a sign of weakness. As a result, many men choose to suffer in silence rather than admit they are struggling. This only deepens the emotional toll, as the man feels more isolated and alone. The lack of emotional validation in marriage is another source of strain for men. While women are often encouraged to seek emotional validation and support from their partners, men are expected to give that validation to their wives without receiving the same in return. Men often feel that their emotional needs are ignored or minimized. When they try to communicate their feelings, they may be told to man up or get over it. This dismissive attitude toward men's emotions only adds to the emotional strain. The emotional toll isn't just about the daily pressures of marriage. It's also about the long-term effects of constantly putting others first. Men are conditioned to put their wives, children, and families before themselves. But what happens when a man's needs are consistently ignored? Over time, this can lead to feelings of worthlessness, resentment, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction with the relationship. So, what is the solution to this emotional toll? The first step is for men to recognize that their emotions matter. They need to acknowledge their own feelings and make sure their emotional needs are being met. Marriage should be a partnership where both partners support each other emotionally, not just one person carrying the weight of the relationship. Men need to feel that they are allowed to express their feelings without fear of judgment or dismissal. Marriage should not be a place where men are expected to constantly sacrifice their emotional well-being for the sake of others. It should be a space where both partners can show vulnerability, share their struggles, and support each other through difficult times. Until this balance is achieved, the emotional toll on men will continue to be one of the hidden truths of marriage that few are willing to face. The truth about marriage is that it isn't always the fairy tale we've been sold. For many men, it's a place of unspoken sacrifice, where they give everything they have, often with little in return. If you've felt the emotional, financial, and mental toll of marriage, you're not alone. The hidden costs of this institution are more than most are willing to admit, and it's time we start talking about it. If you've ever experienced the emotional burden of marriage or struggled with these expectations, I want to hear from you. Share your story in the comments below. Let's start an honest conversation about the hidden truths of marriage that affect men everywhere. And if you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on more real talk about relationships and self